What's up, kings and queens? It's Dan from Daft Previews, and we're back. We made 11 point something units profit yesterday. We absolutely murdered the books. We're up 30 units on these YouTube picks alone in the month of February. So everything is absolutely singing. The proof's in the pudding. I show you these videos every single night. We go through the research. I tell you my leans. I give you my picks, and we're hitting, son. So pretty aroused to get into this one. I'll be previewing all the key NBA player props on this upcoming slate. I'll be sharing my screen. I'll show you Outlier. If that's something you want to do, you can check out the link in the description. 7-day free trial. Let's not waste any time. Let's go. So we're kicking things off with the Dallas Mavericks versus the Toronto Raptors. The Mavs are on a back-to-back, but believe it or not, only Dante Exum is a game-time decision. And for the Toronto Raptors, Jakob Poeltl is a key game-time decision for them. Let's jump through the key player props. We'll talk through what the matchups are like, whether I like them or not. I'll take a short list of the things that I do see that I like, and then you can check the pinned comments after the video has been uploaded. If you do want to ride with me, you can. But ultimately, this is about showing you all the research, all the numbers, everything you need to know. So let's get into it. We'll start with all these players from Dallas. And not all of these players. We'll talk about the key ones. So we'll start with Luka Doncic first. So his points prop, it's at 33.5. He's got a difficult matchup when it comes to points. The Raptors allow the second fewest points to point guards. He just scored 45 points against the Cleveland Cavaliers. He's hit this in 5 out of his last 10 games. Looking at head-to-head matchups, he's gone under his last 2 games against the Toronto Raptors. So personally, I'd probably lean to the under on a back-to-back. Does he need to score this many points? I'm not too sure. Assist-wise, I'd probably lean to the over, purely on the fact that if I don't think he's going to score this many points, he's probably going to get a lot more assists. But let's go through his assist prop. The line is at 9.5. He had 14 assists against the Cavs. He's hit this in 5 out of his last 10. He's got an excellent matchup when it comes to assists. The Raptors give a shitload of those out to point guards. Looking at head-to-head matchups, he has gone under in 3 straight, but I don't care about that. The matchup is great, and I feel like he's going to be diamond up. It's just something in my body's telling me Luke is probably going to be going over. But look, do your research. Don't just follow the things that I'm saying. Do your own research, please. Looking at his rebound prop, that's at 8.5. The matchup is a good one as well against the Raptors. He's hit this in 6 out of his last 10 games. And in head-to-head matchups, he's gone under in 3 straight against the Raptors. So if you believe that based on how a player's played against a certain team is how you can predict they're going to play, you would take his under in rebounds and assists like that, right? But I'm not considering that at all. Luka, you don't want to bet a Luka under on anything, really. So the man can pull up stats like no other. But there's nothing that's made my short list for now. I'm just winging it right now. But let's look at Kyrie. His points props at 27.5. He's covered this in 4 consecutive games, 30 points against the Cavs. He's got a good matchup when it comes to scoring, right? Looking at head-to-head matchups against the Raptors, he's only played them once since joining Dallas, and he scored 22 points in that game. He played 36 minutes. He shot 8 from 19 from the field. So not a very effective outing. But looking at his last 4 games, that field goal percentage is up, but shows his shot attempts. So don't mind the Kyrie over in points, if I'm being honest. Let's look at his assist prop. The line's at 4.5. He's gone under this in 3 games in a row. He's covered in 5 out of his last 10. The matchup's not good or bad. In head-to-head matchups, he had 5 assists the last time they played. And looking at his rebound prop, that line's at 5.5. It was at 4.5 in the game today against the Cavs. I leaned to the over at cash. That line's now moved to 5.5, and you can get that at plus money. The matchup is not a good one or a bad one. He's covered this in 6 out of his last 10 games, but 5 of his last 6. And the last time he played the Raptors, he had 4 rebounds. So I'm not getting the same feeling for Kyrie to get boards in this one, even though he's been hitting them quite well as of late. I'm still a little bit hesitant on him right now. So who else is there? Tim Hardaway, capable of putting up big numbers, but will he against the Raptors? Let's check it out. He's been struggling lately. His line's at 12.5. He's gone under in 6 consecutive games. He's covered this in 3 of his last 10. The matchup is a great one against the Raptors, though. Head-to-head matchups, he did score 17 points the last time they played. This was back in November of this season. I did go under in 2 games prior to that. So Tim Hardaway Jr., good matchup, has done it against him in the past. His minutes aren't very high, and neither are his shot attempts. So I'm not too sure what's happening with Tim Hardaway at the moment, but ever since the trade deadline and they made some moves, he doesn't seem to be as effective. Looking at PJ Washington, he thought he got the game winner against the Cavs, and then Max Strus absolutely destroyed him. That video of his reaction where he's like all flexed and shit after he makes the layup, and then how his body language changes after the Max Strus shot, that's pretty epic. But PJ Washington lines at 11.5, covered in 4 of his last 10. Matchup is a somewhat difficult one for him, so not overly keen on his points prop. Josh Green, I did lean on his points prop in the last game against the Cavs, but I was a bit hesitant due to the matchup. But he's got an excellent matchup in this one. So he's covered his line of 8.5 in 7 of his last 10. Against the Raptors, he's gone under in his last 3 games. In those games, he only attempted 4 shots per game. So looking at how he's gone in his last 5, he's attempting only 7 shots per game, playing 27 minutes per game. So that hasn't gone up too much. But that last game against the Cavs, he only shot 3 for 8. And the matchup was difficult, right? So he shot 1 from 5 from downtown. The matchup is difficult, but what he sees against the Raptors tonight, it's a much easier matchup. I can see him hitting 2 to 3 3-pointers, scoring on the fast break. So, yeah, I think right now a lean for me is Josh Green points. I can see that happening. But I wouldn't look into any of these other props, to be honest with you. Looking at these Toronto Raptors, though, let's check out Emmanuel quickly first. His points prop is at 20.5. He's got a difficult matchup against Dallas. He's covered in 3 of his last 10 games. Hasn't played the Dallas Mavericks since moving to Toronto. So interested to see how he plays in this one. I haven't bet on quickly for a very long time. Highly inconsistent. But let's have a look at his assist prop. The line's at 5.5, and he's only covered this in 3 out of his last 10. It's a somewhat difficult matchup against Dallas. So I'd personally probably lean to the under. But the under there it's not strong enough for me to take. So I probably prefer to avoid Emmanuel quickly altogether at this point in time. Jumping into Gary Trent Jr., we'll only look at his points prop because I don't think he does anything else. He does have a great matchup against Dallas. He's covered in 12. He's covered in 4 of his last 10. The line is at 12.5. Against the Dallas Mavericks, he scored 16 points the last time they played each other earlier this season. In that game, he only played 26 minutes and shot the ball 11 times. And his last 5 games, what's he doing? He's playing 29 minutes. He's shooting the ball 10.8 times on average. I did say if he plays more than 30 minutes, he's going to cover his points line. He played 30.6 minutes and he fell half a point under. So I was absolutely wrong on that one. Caught on the hook. Despite only scoring 11 points, the line moves up to 12.5, and that is because of the matchup. I would probably lean to the Gary Trent overs at the moment, because I think if he plays more than 30 minutes, he's an excellent chance at covering this points line. The matchup is good, but I'll research that a bit more after. Gary Trent Jr.'s. Let me take that note. All right. Next one is RJ Barrett. His points line is 20.5 against the Mavs. Somewhat difficult matchup. Covered this in 7 out of his last 10 games. He hasn't versed the Mavs since moving to the Raptors either. I was worried. I had a lean on his overs against the Pacers because he's just come back from a knee injury. But look, scored 24 points. Knee seems fine. So RJ Barrett, he looks like he's good to go. He got a lot of assists in this game, I remember. Yeah, he did. 5 assists. His line's at 3.5. The matchup's not good or bad. And he's covered this in 6 out of his last 10. His rebound prop is at 6.5. It's plus money. He's only covered in 4 of his last 10. So his rebound numbers have started to drop. The matchup is a pretty good one, though, against the Dallas Mavericks. But he is, I would say, trending downwards from when he first joined the Raptors when it comes to his rebounds. I think for RJ Barrett, probably the points prop would be my favorite one so far. But I'm not overly convinced. Let's have a look at Scotty Barnes. So he's somebody he had a lean on as well. Took a lean on his over 14.5 rebounds and assists, or 15.5. The line moved. He got like 12 rebounds and 12 assists anyway. So absolutely murdered the line. Spearing, I didn't take advantage of it. But this is a home game for Scotty. And I know for home games, he racks up rebounds and assists like no tomorrow. So pretty keen to see what that looks like. His points props at 20.5. He's covered this in 3 out of his last 10 games. He's gone under the last 2 times he's versed Dallas. The matchup is a good one, though. But I wouldn't take Scotty's points props at any time with confidence. His assist and rebound prop, different story. Check this out. He's covered this line of 7.5 in 7 out of his last 10 games. I like the frequency, the hit rate. He's got a good matchup. 7.5, you're getting that for plus money as well, so I like that. He's hit this in 50% of his games against Dallas. So 7 earlier this year, 10 in the game prior, which is pretty good. Keeping in mind, Siakam was still a member of the Raptors in November last year. We know Scotty's assist numbers have only gone up since Siakam left. So I do like this. I'm going to take note of Scotty Barnes, but we might get to his rebound prop, and I might like that too. But plus money for this, you've definitely got my attention. One thing I want to show you real quick. I want to show you, this is a home game. Check out Scotty's assists at home. Not bad. 6 out of his last 10, 4 of his last 5 at home. Brooklyn, he went under, but that's the one. I think that's the most difficult matchup for power forwards. Dallas, different story. It's an easy matchup. Let's check his rebound prop out. That's at 7.5. He's got a good matchup against Dallas. He's covered this in 6 out of his last 10, but it's really 6 out of his last 7 games. Scotty Barnes has performed in this area. Head-to-head matchups, he's killed this against the Dallas Mavericks, 11 and 14. The way that I would most likely play this is looking at his rebounds plus assists. It is at 15.5 though, but I think that's fair. Now, this 15.5, he's covered it in both games against Dallas. Last 2 games, he's covered this easily against Dallas. Looking at his last 10, he's covered this in 6 of his last 10. 2 of the games where he fell under, he landed on 15. Atlanta and Brooklyn. Smashed it against the Pacers. He's got a great matchup for rebounds and assists. Do like this better than just playing his rebounds or just his assists, because he could easily rack up a lot of one, and that could make up for the other if it happens to drop off. So I think this is a safer way to play Scotty Barnes, but I'll leave it up to you guys to make that decision for yourself. Let's have a quick look at Jakob Poeltl points and rebounds. His line is at 11.5. It's a difficult matchup when it comes to points against Dallas, though. He's covered in 8 of his last 10. He's only scored 4 points against Dallas the last time they played. And looking at his rebound prop, 8.5. He's covered this in 8 of his last 10 as well. And against the Dallas Mavericks, he got 6 last time. So Jakob Poeltl, he's been covering these lines very well. The matchup isn't really difficult against Dallas, but they surprisingly do a decent job. But can you really dismiss these excellent hit rates? If you look at his points and his rebounds, what's that come up to? Line's at 20.5. He's covered in 7 out of his last 10. So, yeah, Jakob Poeltl, he's not a player that a lot of people are going to bet on, but he produces quite consistently. So, he might be someone you look at if you're looking at same-game parlays, perhaps. But let's jump into the next game. We're looking at the New Orleans Pelicans versus the Indiana Pacers. Aaron Naismith Jr. is a game-time decision. CJ McCollum is still out for the New Orleans Pelicans. I think Brandon Ingram might be out for this game. Let me just double check that. See if Outlier's got some updated stats for me. There's no notification here on Brandon Ingram. Maybe I'm drunk. Oh no, sorry, I am drunk. Brandon Ingram's playing point guard in this game, so I couldn't see. Very big lineup for the Pelicans. Ingram, Trey Murphy, Herb Jones, Zion, and Jonas Valanciunas. So I'm interesting to see how the Pelicans are going to play this one. But let's go through this. Let's look at Brandon Ingram. Let's check him out. So his points line is at 21.5. He's covered this in 5 out of his last 10. Overall, the Indiana Pacers, they give up a lot of points, right? 122 points a game. Brandon Ingram scored 122 points. Losing my mind. He scored 29 points the last time he played the Pacers. I'd probably most be interested in his assist prop. Line's at 6.5. CJ McCollum didn't play the last game, and Brandon Ingram didn't play too well in that, getting 5 assists either. So I think you'd assume he'd get a lot more assists, but not even true. He gets less assists. But he's covered this in 4 out of his last 10. The Pacers give up a lot of points, but they don't give up a lot of assists. So a lot of ISO, they give up a lot of points. There's not much help defense going on. So Zion, I think, could probably have a big game in this one. Brandon Ingram, I'm a little bit hesitant. Looking at his rebound prop, it's at 4.5. He's covered this in 5 out of his last 10. Against the Pacers, he had 6 rebounds last time. I personally don't bet on Brandon Ingram very much at all. So I'm not overly keen on that. Looking at Zion, though, you can get his points line of 23.5 or 24.5. They're both available. He's covered this in 4 out of his last 10. Got a great matchup against the Pacers. Against the Pacers, he scored 26 points the last time they played, but that was in November 2022, so a very long time ago. Looking at his assist prop, that's at 5.5. He's hit that in 5 out of his last 10. He's got a difficult matchup, as I said. They don't give many assists to anyone, the Indiana Pacers, but they give up points. Looking at his rebound prop, his line's at 5.5. He's covered in 5 of his last 10. He's got a good matchup for rebounds. Had 7 rebounds against the Pacers last time. But thinking about Zion, I'd probably lean to the over in his points prop out of I'm not getting aroused enough to write that down on my short list. I do think he'll go over, but that's not with too much confidence, right? So, um, and the last person for the Pelicans I think is worth looking at is probably Jonas Valanciunas, but no lines on Jonas at the moment, so we're going to have to check him out tomorrow. Looking at the Indiana Pacers, though, who do we got? Tyrese Halliburton, can't miss him. So his points prop is at 18.5. The Pelicans allow the sixth fewest points to point guards. He's covered this in 3 of his last 10, and he's covered this in 1 of 2 against the Pelicans. Last time they played, though, 2022. So I wouldn't worry too much about the head-to-head matchup. Looking at his assist prop, that's at 11.5. You can get it for plus money. He's covered in 4 of his last 10. He's gone under in 2 straight games. He's got a difficult matchup there as well. Looking at his rebound prop, that's at 3.5. He's only covered that in 2 of his last 10. So I personally, for Tyrese Halliburton, I'd probably lean to the under on his points and assists. The matchup is very difficult. The New Orleans Pelicans, they lose CJ McCollum, but if anything, they probably improve defensively. Offensively, they might be a little bit more limited, but the way that the Pacers play defense, do they really need someone like CJ McCollum anyway? So I feel like the Pelicans, better defensive team without CJ, should be able to limit Halliburton points and assists. I think the main one, probably his points prop, I lean to the under in more, but I think if you take both, the under 30, it's hit at 60% of the time over his last 20 games. So there's Tyrese Halliburton. Who else is there? Benedict Mathurin. Let's check his points prop out. He seems to do okay. Sometimes he scored 34 points in the last outing. Prior to that, very quiet. So you really got to find a game where he's maybe got a good matchup where he can bang. But he's got the shooting guards for the Pacers do have a good matchup. But look, I want to take Benedict Mathurin overs with any confidence at the moment. I think the only one's probably worth betting on could be Siakam. So we'll start with Spicy P. He just scored 27 points in his last game against his old team, the Raptors. His line's at 21.5. Matchup is a difficult one against the Pelicans. He's covered in 5 of his last 10. I don't really like taking Pascal for scoring props anymore. Looking at his assist prop, the line's at 3.5. He's covered in 5 of his last 10. And his rebound prop is at 6.5. And he's covered that in 4 of his last 10. So when Pascal was playing for the Raptors, he's someone that you can probably bet on in every single game. You knew he was going to get a lot of game time. He was going to get a lot of opportunity, a lot of possessions. He was going to rebound well. He was going to do everything. On the Pacers, I'm not sure if his roles is defined. He's kind of doing what he used to do, but not as consistently, right? And the lines that we're seeing are quite similar to what they were in Toronto, which I don't like because now I feel like he's less likely. I think if you can find a good chance on the unders, you're more likely to hit those on Pascal Siakam. Let's have a look at Miles Turner. We did just bet on Miles Turner in their last game. I think 15 points and 7 rebounds or something for plus money, and he cashed that. But his line for this one is 17.5. He's got a good matchup when it comes to scoring against the Pels. He's hit this in 4 of his last 10, but only in 1 of his last 2. And checking out his rebound prop, that line's at 7.5. He's covered this in 3 consecutive games, 5 out of his last 10. He's good matchup, and he's rebounded well against the Pelicans in the past. 7.5 rebounds? I don't mind that, to be honest. I'll probably put that on my short list. I don't normally bet on Miles Turner, but I'm feeling him these days. Miles Turner rebounds. Okay. I'll check you out. Other than that, there's not too much that I do like in this game, if I'm going to be honest with you. I don't bet on many Pelicans players or games. Zion overs, perhaps. But outside of that, Turner rebounds probably the one I like the most. But I'm hoping over the next 4 games I can find something juicy for you guys. The next one is the Cleveland Cavaliers versus Chicago Bulls. No key lineup changes in this one, so everyone seems to be available. We'll kick things off with the Cleveland Cavaliers firstly. And let's have a look at Darius Garland. So his points props at 14.5 or 15.5, depending on what odds you want to take. He's hit this in 4 out of his last 10. He's got a difficult matchup scoring the ball. The Bulls don't allow many points to point guards at all. 4 out of his last 10, and he scored 12 points the last time these guys played. And then looking at his assist prop, the line's at 6.5. Woo! Look at this. He's hit this in 8 consecutive games. We did take his assist prop as part of a same-game parlay. The matchup's not a good one or a bad one. And the last 2 games he's played against them, he had 7 assists. So look, Darius Garland, 6.5 assists at plus money. It's something I'm going to lean on. I'm putting that on my list. And that's because he's been hitting it, right? 8 consecutive games. He's hit this assist prop. He's hit it in both games against the Bulls, and the matchup is not a difficult one. So, yes, they're on a back-to-back, but shit, he only played 32 minutes. I'm sure he'll be okay. A lot of these assists, though, I think he had 3 or 4 assists going into the fourth quarter, so he delivered late. I think this game should be somewhat close. The line's only 4.5 in this game, so I don't think there's a good chance for a blowout here. Darius Garland, I do like your assist, my boy, so I've added that to my short list. Let's check out Donovan Mitchell. So his points line is at 25.5. He's got a difficult matchup. He's covered in 7 out of his last 10. He just played the Bulls not too long ago, and I remember when I previewed that game, it was like his form over the last 10 was a little bit inconsistent, but I'm pretty sure I remember saying Donovan Mitchell loves to cook the Chicago Bulls. So before I click on this button, I'm praying that I was right. Not bad. All right. So he's covered his points line against the Bulls in 5 out of his last 6. He scored 30 plus points in 3 of those games, and one of them he scored 71. So, yeah, his recent form is not bad. 7 out of his last 10, and he absolutely cooks the Bulls alive. The matchup data says it's going to be difficult, but Donovan Mitchell says, fuck your matchup data. Ain't nothing too difficult for me. So, I don't mind this. I get the back-to-back thing, but just against Dallas, 25.5 against the Bulls, honestly don't mind that. So D Mitch, I'm going to put you down as well. Mitchell points, I like that. Looking at his assist prop though, the line's at 5.5. He's got a great matchup for assists. Covered in 6 out of his last 10, and he's covered it in every single game against the Bulls. My lord, check that out. And for the 5.5 assists, you're getting that at plus money as well. So I think I know what I'm doing here. I might have a same game parlay in this game because if I get this aroused by too many players, I'm not going to play so many players as a single bets in the same game because if I have read it wrong, I could lose a lot of units there. So if I get overly aroused, close to how I am feeling now, I'll probably play some same game parlays. Maybe we can get plus 200 odds on that, and all shall be dandy. So I like the assists. Let's check his rebounds. It's 4.5. He's covered in 5 of his last 10, 4 of his last 6 against the Bulls. So that's not too arousing, but already we like Garland assists, Mitchell points. And I haven't even got through all the other players on the Cavs, and we haven't touched the Bulls yet. So this scary hours. Let's check Max Strus purely because of the fact he had a massive game against Dallas. I think he had 5 3-pointers in the last 5 minutes, which is pretty awesome. He scored 6. He's covered in 6 of his last 10. The matchup's not good or bad. And against the Bulls, he's struggled. So, yeah, I'm not going to bet on Max Strus to do it again. Probably an outlier. But let's have a look at Evan Mobley. I know there's going to be certain things like rebounds where he's going to have a great matchup, but let's check this out. Points props at 13.5. He's covered in 7 out of his last 10. Against the Bulls, he's got a great matchup. Head-to-head matchups against them, he's covered this line in 3 consecutive games. Evan Mobley points, 13.5 at plus money. It's not a bad play. The concern there is always very close, right? So you'd be very uncomfortable, very sweaty bets, even if it lands. He'll probably feature in the parlay. Looking at his assist prop, he got a lot of assists today. 7 assists to be exact. He's covered in 5 of his last 10. And against the Bulls, it's a shit show. So I wouldn't take that. But looking at his rebound prop, 8.5. He's got the best matchup in basketball, the most rebounds to power forwards on the season. He's covered this in 7 of his last 10. He had 9 rebounds the last time he played the Bulls. After that, though, he had struggled. So he is rebounding quite well at the moment. If you put a lot of stock into recent form and matchups, Evan Mobley, rebounds, go ahead and take it. But yeah, I think that could feature in the parlay, but it probably won't be at that line. So let's have a look at Jared Allen. I swear to God, if this guy's rebound numbers are all green, this parlay might be too big. But let's check this out. Points props at 16.5. He's covered this in 4 straight games, 7 of his last 10. Against the Chicago Bulls, he's covered in 3 out of his last 7. Looking at his rebound prop, that is at 10.5. That is too high for me. The matchup is difficult. He's covered this in 2 out of his last 10. But against the Bulls, he's covered in 2 out of his last 7. So I think Jared Allen still has a good game in this game. But I think his points and rebound line is probably a little bit too high for me to fuck around with. Let's have a look at these Chicago Bulls. Kobe White, he had a somewhat slow game in his last one. So Points props at 21.5. The matchup's not good or bad. He only scored 10 points against Detroit. He's only covered this in 4 out of his last 10. Scored 32 points against the Cleveland Cavaliers the last time they played, but he did go under in 6 consecutive games prior to that. Assist prop is at 5.5. The matchup's difficult. 6 out of his last 10, and he's only covered in 1 of his last 7 against the Cavs. And looking at his rebound prop, that's at 4.5. Matchup is difficult. 7 out of his last 10 against the Cavs. 2 out of his last 7. So not really liking Kobe White in this one. Dosunmu. We'll just look at his points and assists in this one. Points-wise, 13.5. 6 out of his last 10. Matchup is difficult. He's only covered in 1 of his last 7 against the Cavs. And looking at his assists, 6 out of his last 10, but he has passed the ball very well over his last 3 games. The last time he versed the Cavs, though, only got 2 assists. So I wouldn't be betting on Dosunmu. I think the harder I try to say these things, the more I screw it up. You know who I'm talking about. Let's have a look at DeMar DeRozan. He's actually been producing quite well in points and assists as of late, so I can't give him such a hard time. He's covered this in 8 out of his last 10 games. His points prop scored 24 points the last time against the Cavs, but has been inconsistent in the past. Looking at his assist prop, the line's at 4.5, 6 out of his last 10, and 3 of his last 7. So probably less confidence of DeMar DeRozan, but let's not hide the fact that he has been playing quite well lately. Nikola Vucevic lines at 18.5, and he's covered this in 9 out of his last 10 games. Man's on fire. Matchup is difficult against the Bulls, though. But, I mean, against the Cavs, he does play for the Bulls. And he's covered in 2 of his last 7. So looking at his last 10 games, the only game where he's gone under is against the Cleveland Cavaliers. So despite the strong output in his last 10, line's still only 18.5, and that's obviously influenced by the difficult matchup. Looking at his rebound prop, that's at 10.5. He's covered this in 6 out of his last 10 games. Only had 8 rebounds against the Cavs last time. Prior to that, had some decent efforts against them. So the Vucevic props, I'm not really feeling that either. So I'll probably have a Cleveland Cavaliers same game parlay, just giving you all the heads up now, but I'll start cooking that after I finish this video. The next game we're looking at is the Memphis Grizzlies versus the Minnesota Timberwolves. Karl Anthony Towns. I think he's out of this game, or his game time decision. I'm pretty sure he's out. And looking at Memphis, Choncha, he's a game time decision. A lot of their usual outs. I hope we don't end up betting on Vince Williams' assists again, because I keep betting on it time and time again. I just need some variety. So let's check this out. Let's have a look at Anthony Edwards first. So his points prop is at 27.5. He's covered this in 5 consecutive games now. 7 out of his last 10. Difficult matchup against the Memphis Grizzlies. Head-to-head matchups, he's covered in 3 of his last 7. Scored 28 points in his last game against the Grizzlies. If Karl Anthony Towns is out for this game, let's check this out. This is Anthony Edwards' last 10 games without Karl Anthony Towns. He's covered in 6 out of his last 10. It's not massive, to be honest. You'd think it'd be a lot better, but I don't bet on Anthony Edwards too much, and I'm probably not going to start now. But let's check his assist prop. 3 of his last 10, and only 3 of his last 7 against the Grizz. So I don't like that. Rebound prop is 5.5. He's covered in 6 of his last 10, and only in 2 of his last 7 against the Grizzlies. So Anthony Edwards is by far the best player on the court in this game, but there is nothing that I would bet on in terms of his props at the moment. His points prop has been hitting quite well lately, but I don't know. I just don't have too much confidence in him. Let's have a look at Rudy Gobert. His points prop. His line's at 13.5. He's gone under in 3 straight. He's got a decent matchup. He did 6 of his last 10. And against the Timberwolves, he's covered, not the Timberwolves, against the Grizzlies, he's covered in 2 consecutive games this season. So that's pretty good. I wonder how Rudy plays without Karl Anthony Towns. Let's have a look. All right. Against Memphis, without Cat, he's gone under every time. But check this out. His last 10 games without Karl Anthony Towns, he's gone over in 8 of them. But not convincingly either. So, yeah, I think that line could be right. Rebounds, his line is also at 13.5. He's covered in 5 of his last 10. He's got a great matchup. The Grizzlies had a 20 rebound game against them, but then a 10 rebound game after that, a month after. So, yeah, the matchup is good, but that's not screaming out to me right now. I'm just checking to see. Mike Conley, is there some value in what he's doing? Points line's at 9.5. He's covered in 4 of his last 10. Matchup's not the best, but he has gone over in 3 consecutive games against the Memphis Grizzlies. So Mike Conley used to play for the Memphis Grizzlies once upon a time, but it was a very long time ago. But who knows? He might even have his jersey retired there. He's well liked, but I'm not betting on him. Let's have a look at these Memphis Grizzlies. I think Vince Williams and Jaren Jackson Jr. are the main ones to really look at. Vince Williams, his scoring output is trending downwards, so I wouldn't take that with any confidence. The Timberwolves also defend wings quite well. So if anything, I'd lean to the under on this one. He's gone under in all 3 games against the Timberwolves. Looking at his assist prop, that's 4.5. It's juiced. So 5.5, if you want some good value, would probably be the best play. He's hit this in his last 8 games, which is pretty crazy. And he had 5 assists the last time he played the Minnesota Timberwolves. So at 5.5, I don't think I'd be willing to take it, given how difficult the matchup is. It would be plus money, but I might give my Vince Williams prop a break. Jaren Jackson Jr., his points props at 23.5. He's covered this in 6 out of his last 10 games. Matchup's a difficult one. And the last time he played the Timberwolves, he scored 36 points, though. And that 36 points was scored, and they lost by 15 anyway. So 23.5, you probably lean to the over. But what we're seeing at the moment with this Grizzlies, it's clear that they're not going to go anywhere with this team this season. They're playing deeper into their bench. A lot of the younger guys, Gigi Jackson especially, getting more time, more shots, opportunities. Jaren Jackson Jr. not being leaned on as much. So not really loving that either. So looking at this game, I just don't like anything in this game. Anthony Edwards is probably most likely to cover his points line out of everything I see here, but I just don't. That's logically, it tells me, yeah, and Edwards overs. I just don't feel confident, so I'm not going to bet it. The next one, though, this would be a great game. It's the Sacramento Kings versus the Denver Nuggets. Sabonis versus Jokic. We love that. Important thing to note, De'Aaron Fox is a game time decision in this one. So for Kings players, we can only bet on Sabonis and Fox right now, but he is a game time decision. Everyone's suiting up for the Denver Nuggets. So let's start with De'Aaron Fox. Look at this. Look at this. So we bet on De'Aaron Fox for this game against Miami. I think his points line was only 23.5, but we took points plus assists and he covered it pretty easily. He's hit this points prop, though, of 26.5 in 5 consecutive games, 6 out of his last 10. Somewhat difficult matchup against Denver, but against Denver, he's covered in 2 out of his last 6. De'Aaron Fox has a left knee bruise, so interesting to see whether he suits up. But looking at his assist prop, he's covered that well as well. 7 out of his last 10 games. The matchup's a difficult one, but he's covered his assist prop very well against the Denver Nuggets, especially this season. He's been killing it. 16, 10, and 8 assists from De'Aaron Fox. So if he does play, I really do like the assist side of Fox. But then again, we don't know whether he plays. Domantas Sabonis. His points prop, 19.5. He's got a great matchup against the Nuggets. As great as Jokic is, not the best defensively. Now, Domantas only scored 17 points the last time he played. 20 points the last time he played Denver. 17 points in the other 2 games this season. Matchup's a good one. I just can't take a Domantas Sabonis points prop. He's just too unselfish. Looking at his assist prop, though, I could definitely muck around with this. The line is 8.5. The matchup's not good or bad. He's hit this in 8 out of his last 10 games. So he's had 10 plus assists in 8 of his last 10 games. It's absolutely wild. If I was going to play an assist prop for him, I would take the 10. Get plus money for it, but he's hit this in 1 of his last 5 games against Denver. Yeah, his recent form's great. I'm not taking the assist prop, but I'm saying if I did, I'd take the 9.5. Looking at his rebound prop, the line's at 13.5. I made a comment in the last video. I was like, this guy's line's at 14.5. What the fuck is this? He fell under it, but he got pretty close. 14 rebounds, pretty good. His line in this one, 13.5. It's plus money. The matchup is a difficult one against Nikola Jokic. And he's covered this in 2 out of his last 5 games. So he's perfectly capable of covering this line, but obviously the line's quite high. He could easily fall well under it, right? So I don't find any value in Sabonis props for this particular game in this matchup. So I'll have to pass on that. But let's have a look at these Denver Nuggets. We'll start with Jamal Murray. His points prop, 22.5. The matchup's not good or bad. He's covered this in 4 out of his last 10 games, 1 of his last 2 against the Kings. That's too contradicting for me. Assist prop, 5 out of his last 10. The line's 6.5. He does have a good matchup against the Sacramento Kings, but he's covered that 1 of his last 2 games against them. And his rebound prop, the line's at 3.5. He's covered in 5 out of his last 10. Good matchup in this one. I mean, he's covered in 1 of his last 2. He only played 25 minutes in this game, and it was a blowout. So the Kings won by 29 points. So probably wouldn't put too much stock into that, but it was a bad performance nonetheless. This is a home game for Denver, so you might see some value in taking some of these nuggets. Who else is there? Michael Porter Jr. Let's check him out. His points line, 16.5, 4 out of his last 10. Matchup is a difficult one. And against the Kings, he's covered in 3 out of his last 4, so that's not too bad. His rebound prop is 6.5. He's covered in 2 of his last 4 against the Kings. He's been rebounding well in his last 3 games, and he's covered in 6 out of his last 10. So what's really interesting here, and I'm just going through these numbers right now. Sacramento versus Denver. MPJ. I think he could be due for a bounce back, to be honest, but yeah, that's not screaming out to me either. Aaron Gordon, come on. AG, give me something good. Points props at 14.5. He's got a great matchup here against the Kings. 5 out of his last 10 he's covered, and he scored 25 points the last time they played. He's played the Kings 3 times this year. Lowest amount was 14 points, and that was the blowout game. He only played 27 minutes. That's down on his regular. What's he normally playing? Over his last 10, playing about 30 minutes a night. Excluding blowouts, he should get over 30 minutes. But again, if De'Aaron Fox is not playing and the Nuggets blow these guys out, he's obviously going to get less minutes and opportunities. But I don't mind Aaron Gordon points in this one. But let's check his rebound prop real quick. The line's at 5.5. He's covered in 5 out of his last 10. The matchup isn't that great. I did get 15 rebounds the last time they played, but that score was 102-98. A lot of people would have got a lot of rebounds in that game. So, but Aaron Gordon, very inconsistent rebounding the ball lately. Assist-wise, 2.5, 5 out of his last 10. Good matchup, but he's gone under against the Kings twice already. So, Aaron Gordon points, I don't mind that at all. Let's have a look at the Joker. So, his points props at 26.5. He's covered in 5 out of his last 10 games. Difficult matchup scoring the ball against the Kings. I think he went under the last time they played. He's actually gone under the last 2 times they played. So, not loving his points prop here. His assist prop is at 9.5. He's covered this in 3 straight games very easily. 5 out of his last 10, but he's gone under against the Kings in the last 2 games. Looking at his rebound prop, that line is at 12.5. He's gone under in 4 or 5 against the Kings. And in his last 10, he's covered in 6 of his last 10 games. But this last 3-game stretch, his rebounds and assists are through the fucking roof. Check this out. In his last 3 games, 15 assists and 19 rebounds, 14 assists and 15 rebounds, 16 assists and 16 rebounds. Absolutely out of this world. So I think that's pretty crazy. I don't know. Do you want to look at odds for just a triple-double? But would you make a decision just because he's playing this way over his last 3 games? Check out the competition. Washington, Portland, Warriors. Much more difficult matchup in this one. So, yeah, I'm not feeling Nikola Jokic either. So, in this particular game, I hate to say it, but the only pick I'd probably say that I like is a guy who probably won't play, but De'Aaron Fox assists. I don't mind that at all. So, that'll make my lean list. Let's jump into the last game. We're looking at the Battle of LA. It's the Los Angeles Lakers versus the Los Angeles Clippers. LeBron James, Anthony Davis. Game time decisions, and Paul George is still out for the Clippers. So Norm Powell gets a starting spot, but other players like Amir Coffey, they'll probably get more minutes in this one too. So let's get through these Lakers players first. Starting with D'Lo. Points prop, 17.5. He's covered in 6 out of his last 10. 6 out of his last 7, really. Looking at head-to-head matchups, he's covered in 2 out of his last 4 against the Clippers. So you'd probably check to see who was playing in these games and why the hell is he so inconsistent. But his recent form is great. Looking at his assist prop, the line's at 5.5. It's a difficult matchup, but he's gone over in 4 consecutive games. He's gone over in 4 consecutive games against as well. So that has piqued my interest a little bit. So D-Lo assists has made the lean list. Let's keep moving forward here. But D'Lo, who else is there? Austin Reeves. His point line is at 14.5. It's plus money. Good matchup against the Clippers. He's covered this in 7 out of his last 10 games. Against the Clippers, he's only covered in 2 of 6, and he has struggled. Assist-wise, the line's at 5.5. 6 out of his last 10. The matchup's not good or bad, but he has struggled against the Clippers. So I'm not feeling anything on Austin Reeves there. I will check out LeBron James. His points prop, 24.5. Matchup's not good or bad, but he has covered this in 3 consecutive games, 6 out of his last 10, and he's covered it in 5 consecutive games against the Los Angeles Clippers. So LeBron knows how important this game is, and with games with the magnitude like this, he does tend to step up. So I'll probably lean to the over on this one, 24.5 points. The matchup's not difficult. He's got it done against the Clippers before, and his recent form is okay. So don't mind the over for LeBron, but passing the ball, he's done an amazing job of that lately. Line's at 7.5. The matchup's not bad, but it's not great. 7 out of his last 10 he's covered in. Against the Clippers, he's gone under this line in every single game, but he has had 7 assists in 4 consecutive games. So my mind automatically goes to a 20 points and 6 assists game. He's had 6 assists in 9 of his last 10 games. He scored 20 points, I think, in all of his 10 games, I believe, or 9 of his last 10. So that's where my mind goes. But checking out his rebound prop, it's at 6.5. He has been a little bit inconsistent with that as of late. 5 out of his last 10 games, difficult matchup. But against the Clippers, he's rebounded extremely well, covering in 6 consecutive games against them. So, yeah, look, it's a difficult one here. He hasn't been rebounding well, but he probably hasn't had to. Tends to step it up against the Clippers. So, I think his PRA, it might be a good look to go over, but I'll probably just play some safer plays in a same game parlay for LeBron. I don't feel too confident taking his lines. Who else is there? Rui Hachimura. He's in the starting lineup these days. His points props 11.5. He's covered in 6 out of his last 10. Matchup's a difficult one against the Clippers, and Rui hasn't had much success against them in the past. Checking his rebound prop here because somebody's taking LeBron's rebounds. So Rui's line's at 3.5. He's covered in 9 of his last 10, and he does have a good matchup. He's had 3 rebounds in both of his games against the Clippers. Not playing as many minutes as he probably is playing now, but this is juiced, minus 145. I wouldn't take him at 4.5. But at 3, yeah, I don't mind him if you take the 2.5. But then, again, you're getting some pretty terrible odds there. Let's have a look at Anthony Davis. His points props at 24.5. He's covered this in 5 out of his last 10. Difficult matchup. The Clippers don't allow many percenters on the season. Anthony Davis has played all right against the Clippers, but out of his last 6, quite inconsistent. So I wouldn't feel confident taking Anthony Davis points prop at all. His assist prop, 2.5. Hasn't been getting many of those lately. 5 of his last 10, 3 of his last 6 against the Clippers. I believe he has been rebounding the ball quite well. The line's at 13.5. He's covered this in 6 out of his last 10. Difficult matchup against the Clippers. And he's gone under his rebound line in every game against them. So that is quite interesting. Line 13.5 is very high. So I'd probably lean to the under on his rebound prop, but I feel like that'll be a very stressful bet to play. But I probably lean that way that he's going to go unders. So I think D'Lo assists, Bron points and assists, probably the ones I'd most be interested from the Lakers. But let's have a look at these Clippers. So we'll start with Russell Westbrook. Coming off the bench, I haven't been overly impressed with his performances pretty much most of this season. Still quite inefficient. So just looking at his points prop, 5 out of his last 10, has covered in 5 of his last 7 against the Lakers, though. Looking at his assist prop, 4.5. He's covered in 3 of his last 10 and only 3 of his last 7 against the Lakers. And his rebound prop is 4.5 plus money, 2 out of his last 10 and 2 of his last 7 against the Lakers. So Russ, difficult person to bet on, but no PG. So you'd have to look at the numbers with or without PG in the lineup. Let's look at the Kawhi Leonard points line. It's at 25.5. He's gone under in 6 consecutive games. That's not good. The Lakers, it's a pretty good matchup in terms of points, but head-to-head wise, Kawhi's only covered this in 1 of his last 6 against LA, so I don't like that. Looking at his assists of 3.5, he's covered 6 of his last 10. He had 10 assists the last time he played the Lakers. That's pretty crazy. And looking at his rebound prop, that's at 6.5. Difficult matchup. 4 of his last 10, but he has rebounded well against the Lakers, covering this line in 5 out of his last 6. So in these games against the Lakers, he's playing almost 36 minutes a game. In his last 10, playing 33. So, yeah, Kawhi, probably very similar to LeBron James. Given how important this game is, I feel like Kawhi is going to be heavily involved in this one. Whether he's rebounding, scoring, I think similar to LeBron, he'll get involved. I can't confidently take a pick on just these numbers. I have to look at the script a little bit more. Let's have a look at Zoo. His points prop is at 12.5 plus money. 3 out of his last 10. Just cover this in 3 of his last 6 against the Lakers. His rebound prop, that's at 9.5. He's covered this in 6 out of his last 10 games. He's got a good matchup. Had 19 rebounds the last time they played the Los Angeles Lakers, but he's covered this in 3 out of his last 6. He has recorded 8+ rebounds in every game against LA, and he's covered 8 rebounds in 7 out of his last 10. So, yeah, maybe one for the parlays. Zubac, 8 rebounds. Check out Norman Powell, just his points prop. Line is at 18.5. He has covered this in 3 consecutive games. Against the Lakers, he's covered this in 2 of 7. But we have no Paul George, right? So this guy plays probably 25 to 30 minutes a night. I think without Paul George, I think it's safe to assume Norman Powell is going to play at least 30 minutes in this game. So if we look last 10 games where he played more than 30 minutes, you can see he's covered this points line in 8 of his last 10. Matchup is not a difficult one, so I actually don't mind Norman Powell to get busy. In these games when he plays more than 30 minutes, he's shooting the ball about 13 or 14 times on average. So it really comes down to his efficiency. But I think the more shots he takes, the less efficient he becomes. But I don't mind his points prop in this one. It's not a bad one, but I feel like Norm Powell 15 points might make his way into a parlay, to be honest. Norm Powell 15. Last player to look into here is James Harden. So his points prop, that's at 20.5. He's covered this in only 3 of his last 10 games. Against the Lakers, scored 23 points last time, 15 points in his first matchup against them. Assists, the line's at 8.5. He's gone under this now in 7 consecutive games, 2 out of his last 10. Against the Lakers, he has gone over in both games. Rebound prop, I have been betting James Harden rebounds quite a little bit lately. The line is at 5.5. He's got a good matchup against the Lakers, but in head-to-head matchups, he has struggled. So I don't feel like I'm going to be betting a James Harden prop, to be honest. I'd probably lean to his under in points. I'd probably lean to his under in PRA, to be honest with you. Let's have a look at that. Because we know he hasn't been scoring quite well. We know assist-wise, he hasn't been getting those assists at all. He has got it against the Lakers. Rebound-wise, we know he struggled against the Lakers. But if you're looking at the sum of all 3, his PRA is at 35.5, and he's covered this in 3 out of his last 10 and only 6 of his last 20. He's gone under this PRA in both of his games against the Lakers. So in one of those games, he had 23 points and 10 assists, still went under his PRA. So I'd probably lean to the under in James Harden PRAs, but I feel like minus 111 odds. It's not bad. So I'll probably put that down as a lean, James Harden. Under PRA. All right, kings and queens. We've done it again. He's gone through all the player props. He's gone through all the games. What I'm going to ask you to do for me right now is smash that like button. And if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel. The good thing is 60% of the people that watch this video are subscribed to the channel. That's actually quite high when I compare it to other channels across YouTube. But being a greedy bastard, looking for growth, I want more. So if you haven't subbed to the channel, sub to the channel because your boy's getting busy, coming to you live from the west side of Sydney. Like the video as well. Help me get this one out to more people. Get it out there. Feed the algorithm. Best of luck if you do decide to tell me. Pin comments. We'll have all my final bets in it. I encourage you to do your own research. Check out Outlier. Free 7-day trial. Link is in the description box. Now let's go.
Sub to the channel cause your boy's getting busy. Coming to you live from the west side of Sydney. We've got the free picks and the juice on the daily. It's all free, you don't even have to pay me.